Welcome to Lunch Hour Legal Marketing. I am Conrad Somm, and I have a younger brother who has always been taller than me, and it was really annoying when I was growing up. And I remember at his wedding, I had this great line. I spoke extemporaneously as the best man. I had this great line, which was, "Paul, you've always been my younger brother, but I've always looked up to you." I remember that line, and I totally forgot it during the talk, and I resent that.
That's awesome. I am Gyi Sakalakis from Attorney Sync, and I am 0 for 1 in deer hunting.
Okay. Did you enjoy it?
I did. I'll tell you, for folks that have never done hunting or sat in the woods,
Isn't
getting
that the
out
same thing?
was for me. Getting out into the woods early in the morning and watching the sun come up, amazing experience. I highly recommend it. Just watching, I saw a lot of deer. Never pulled the trigger because they were either too small or too far away, and I don't know what I'm doing. But a great experience, great camaraderie. Being out in nature in general, I think, it's just something I think that grateful that I had the opportunity to do so, and I'd recommend everybody else to give it a try if you haven't.
All right. Gyi, other than hunting and my very tall brother, what else are we talking about today?
Well, you're going to drop some news, and then we are going to talk about exclusivity and competitive research.
So for those of you who watched Gyi stumble a little bit there, it was actually, it was my job to say, and here at Lunch Hour Legal Marketing, we don't just talk about tall siblings and hunting. We often talk about the nuances and news about digital marketing for the legal industry. And then Gyi was supposed to say, "Hey, Conrad, what else are we talking about today?" And I was supposed to say, first, we're going to start with the news. And then we have a fascinating thing about competitive research. And then we're going to respond to a couple of competitors who are bad-mouthing the practices of Attorney Sync and Mockingbird for having market exclusivity. Mr. Lockwood, hit the music.
Welcome to Lunch Hour Legal Marketing, teaching you how to promote, market, and make fat stacks for your legal practice. Here on Legal Talk Network.
Welcome to Lunch Hour Legal Marketing. As always, we start with the news. All right, it is acquisition time. Chris Dreyer of Rankings just announced yesterday, was it yesterday? That they have picked up competitor Gladiator Legal Marketing. Both of these guys have been around for a long time. And Chris is a growing firm. So well played.
I was going to say thank you to Chris because I was alerted by Alert Mouse. If you're looking for a tool that alerts you on brand mentions,
wow.
Alert Mouse is a great tool. I got a notification that I was named on Rankings' site, and so were you. And grateful to Chris and Rankings for naming us on their top 17 law firm SEO services for 2026. Now, interesting thing, why would Chris do this? He's just a humanitarian,
that was really
altruistic
nice of him.
rival who likes to name competitors on top lists.
I believe, oh no, this was the episode we did with Darren Shaw. The answer is in the episode that you and I did with Darren Shaw, which if you were listening to this at the beginning of December, this came out in the middle of November. So this would be, you have 2 episodes ago. Great episode that you should listen to. The answer to the question is, because this is heavily driving AI, these top lists. And Darren Shaw postulated that these top lists, these types of top lists, are actually going to become a bidding system to get yourself on the top lists. Interesting. And certainly Rankings is playing that game. So that's why you're seeing it. You agree with everyone on this list, dude?
No comments, Conrad. I'll leave that up to you to answer. Many of them I think
That's
are great.
nice of you. That's nice
Yeah.
of you.
Do you have a top list on your site, Conrad? I don't have a top. I got to think about my top list for maybe that's what I'll do.
List, mine's a list of one.
We should do an episode of top SEOs.
Top SEOs. We could do that.
Or we can do your list of bottom SEOs.
Wow. Or we could do a list of blacklisted law firms on the don't work with these law firms blacklist.
I'm sure that's what our listeners want to hear is who are the names of the law firms that SEO companies shouldn't work with?
I'm not saying it doesn't exist. Dun, dun, dun.
Listeners, I'd be curious. You can message me on LinkedIn. Do you care about any of these acquisitions? Because Conrad and I my view is we talk about them a lot. And I don't know. I mean, some of it's relevant, but anyway, SEMRush is an SEO tool. It got purchased by Adobe for like $1.9 billion. What does that mean for you? Conrad, maybe you have some thoughts about what it means for...
It means nothing. We're going to get into
which is why
competitive ranking tools.
That's why it's so important to have it in the news.
Wow. Gyi making his case to ditch acquisitions in the news.
Well,
I still think it's news.
I don't know. Okay, it's SEO-y. But
SEO-y.
I do think that there is an consolidation of whether it's tools or agencies or law firms. It does matter in the marketplace. I just think about like, what's actionable about this? Like, am I like, okay, so, there's already been some chatter. Does this mean SEMRush goes into the trash pile because Adobe, that has a lot of history of issues in some of its acquisitions, you can go look those up, and Adobe is not really has anything to do with an SEO company. Like, what happens to SEMRush? Congratulations to the people who made a bunch of money off of this deal. Otherwise, I'm like, as a local, law firm, like, what's it mean for me? And maybe I'm missing it. You can DM me and tell me why I'm totally wrong.
And Gyi, just like car models are always trying to one-up each other year after year, there's a lot going on similarly in the AI wars. What's going on here?
Well, we're sitting here recording this on November 19th. On November 12th, OpenAI released GPT 5.1 in ChatGPT. And as of yesterday, the 18th, Google introduced Gemini 3 and introduced Gemini 3 in Google Search. You can go read all the release notes of like what it's doing. The stuff's getting smarter. We know it's supposed to be getting better. For me, from a legal marketing standpoint, the question is going to be adoption. And based on what we already know, even though like TBD on longer term ChatGPT adoption overall, Google is still king. And I suspect, and we can tease the crystal ball episode. And in fact, we forgot to mention, if you've got ideas for crystal ball insights for 2026, hit us up because we would love to hear your best crystal ball guesses. But one of my guesses I'll reveal on this episode is that Google goes full AI mode in 26.
Crystal ball, always our most popular episode of the year when we talk about when we were right and when we were wrong.
Yes.
And the other thing, Gyi, and I don't know when this actually came out, but someone forwarded it to me. Floyd Mayweather, now a brand in the legal marketing realm. Floyd Mayweather got into law through the Money Team law firm, and I spent a little time on the site. It looks like their Google Maps thing doesn't load correctly. It still says in development, but it looks like they're trying to do lead gen. I think they mentioned they have 400 or 200 partners. Yet when you kind of roll over any of those cities in the map, there's no one who actually shows up. But maybe you'll be hit up next week or next month from people from Floyd Mayweather's The Money Team law firm offering deals of business that they can't serve because they're not a law firm.
Question.
Yeah.
Because I haven't seen this, but your instinct is that this is not a law firm. This is a marketing company.
It's a marketing company. Lead gen. They talk about, although they are called the Money Team law firm, which one might argue is a little bit misleading.
Right.
I'm pretty sure these tough-looking people here. They've got some good taglines to build off of this. There are a lot of fighters, but there's only one real champion. Fighters don't always win, but a real champion never loses.
I mean, they have an attorney advertising disclaimer in the footer. They also say the money team law handles cases nationwide. Licensed attorneys practice in applicable jurisdictions.
But then they're trying to recruit our nationwide network, right? Join our nationwide network.
So Top Dog Law is a law firm, and Morgan & Morgan is a law firm. Is it more like that, or is it? I mean, I don't, because alternatively, because I didn't look into this. Maybe folks that know can hit us up. But did Floyd Mayweather go out and get his license, his law license, or is he a celebrity endorser, or something?
I'm going with the latter. I think this is actually an interesting idea implemented in a bit of at the risk of making the pun, the ham-fisted manner. We've talked I don't know if you've had conversations with NIL deals, right? For local athletes. Like this is a thing. It's coming. Talk about trying it. We talk so much about branding, positioning, and why it's easier to brand and position a person. Like this is doing exactly that. So it's a fascinating idea. I see this more as a branding issue than like this is another law firm.
Okay. Well, more to come on the money team.
By the way, if any of you are involved in the money team law firm, we would love to hear from you. Next, in the news. It's not really news. He was waiting for me to bring this up. I wanted to make this a segment, and Gyi hated it, so we stuck it in the news, which is where we put stuff.
Oh, I thought it is a segment. It's not a segment today?
No, we decided to go deeper. Okay. We're going really, by the way, as you're listening to this, we're going really deep on competitive analysis and tools. And I think that's very, very important. I wanted to go deeper on the exclusivity slander. And I use the word slander like a teen would, not from a legal perspective, that is going on, and talk about why Gyi and I believe that market exclusivity is important. But I first want to read, we mentioned Chris Dreyer earlier. I would say friend of both of ours, respected friend.
I consider Chris, I consider a very respected rival.
So now we will shit on Chris because of this. Dreyer writes, if you're a shit agency, you hand out exclusivity like candy because your clients don't grow. They stay stuck and it's never a problem. Then you churn and burn and it's on to the next sucker. Maria Monroy of Law Rank, Chris Dreyer, I couldn't have said it better. And then Kevin Daisy weighed in. Chris Dreyer, I agree with you. We don't offer it. Honestly, it's a red flag when a firm leads with the exclusivity question. I'm assuming it's a red flag to him if a law firm is asking him about exclusivity. Gyi, can you postulate why it might be a red flag for a prospective client to ask about exclusivity for Kevin Daisy's business?
Why? Ask me that again.
Sorry. The simple answer is because Kevin Daisy doesn't offer exclusivity. Thus, it would be, by definition, a red flag. And that's, I think, the big deal here is like none of these businesses offer exclusivity, and therefore they don't appreciate the value of it. Gyi, you do. We do. And I know
apparently we're wrong. Apparently we're wrong.
We are,
because several agencies here, and you can go listen to the Scorpion episode. We know they don't offer it either. We're in the minority position here, and our rivals might say that you're focused on something that lawyers generally don't care about, like and evidenced by there are tens of thousands of law firms that are working with agencies that don't offer any form of exclusivity. My issue with it has always been this. I'm a former lawyer. I'm very well versed in the idea of conflicts of interest. Are there things you can do to mitigate the conflict, right? Like, can you set it up so that it's not the same account people running these accounts, and you're not sharing insights and analysis and data across competitor accounts? But I think of it this way. I'm a multi-office firm. Like I think of some of my friends here in Southeast Michigan, Metro Detroit area. Maybe if I'm like super small and I don't really maybe I might think of it as like an advantage. Like I want the agency who's working with the big players in town, like because I'm going to benefit from that agency's knowledge of working with those bigger players. But if I'm one of those bigger players and it's competitive and it is a winner takes most game in search, and yada, 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 I would be very concerned, and I would want to know specifically who my agency was working with, and all that kind of stuff. Now, I will say this. And this is kind of what I said in this thread on LinkedIn is that if a client wants to waive, or a prospect wants to waive exclusivity, they're like, I don't care. You can work with my competition.
Would you give them a discount?
I mean,
who would voluntarily waive that without getting something for it?
Well, tens of thousands of lawyers are, because they're signing up for services, and so, but it's not without issue, right? Because, and you and I have talked about this many times, and I don't put words in Chris's mouth, but, how is exclusivity defined?
Well,
and what happens when a client that you're working with opens a new office in an area where you already have a client? And then do you have that same conversation? And you're like, hey, client A, so you're Mockingbird, and you're like, client A has exclusivity here, client B has exclusivity there, and then client A decides, hey, I want to open an office where client B is. Do you say, we can't work with you, client A?
Do you want to? Are you being Socratic?
I don't know. It's supposed to be it's a news item, so
it's a news item. We're not going to go deep on this. This is why I wanted to make this a segment. I'm hijacking our news.
Well, we can. You can be on the fly pivot to exclusivity.
So the answer to that question is the transparency is always a good thing. We've lost clients because of this. We have gained clients because of this. I just philosophically believe that it is. I cannot ethically or even practically represent two people in a winner takes all game. You just can't do it. I don't think so. Now, I think Chris is an example of this. I'm going to pander to a competitor right now. Chris's business is good. They're really good at what they do. And so there are people who may be like, all right, I'm willing to waive that because they're very good at this thing, right? That is an earned position, right?
Let me give you another counterpoint.
Okay.
As long as I'm hitting my growth goals and my business objectives, I don't care if you're working with my competition. So I'm hitting my return on investment. I'm hitting my target cost per client. I'm hitting my new client volume. I don't care if you work with the competition.
So how many times have you had that conversation?
Never.
Right. I already knew the answer.
Well, the other, you brought this up, and we talked about this during the Scorpion episode. Another counterpoint is like, look at all this data we've got that we can use.
That I think is a very real thing, but it's also the reason why it's so problematic.
Well, this goes back to small firm benefits at big firms' expense.
Disagree.
Right?
I disagree.
Small firm who has data scarcity issue can now leverage competitor data to inform their campaigns.
Or, and I think this happens especially in pay-per-click, or small firm gets absolutely destroyed because they have the smaller budget. They get put on a different team, right? You get the big boy team, or you get the little kid team, right?
But that comes back to then, you're not good at so you're assuming you're not assuming, but it sounds like you're implying that small firm is not going to get the results that big firm's getting, right? Because they're getting the B team.
That happens, right? Like,
but my point is the check on that is that small firm that's getting the B team fires the agency because they're like, I'm not getting results. Not because of exclusivity, right?
But yeah.
You're saying practically speaking, that's just not how it works out.
It's not how it works. So my read is, if you're running in a business where if you are one of three firms that works with one of these agencies, my vendor management approach would be to be the constantly pain in the ass, squeaky wheel, always threatening to leave so they give you the most that they possibly can. And that's the kind of business, like, I don't want relationships like that with my clients. I just don't.
So there you go. If you're a CMO at a law firm, something to think about in terms of vendor relationship management.
Where can you go to get exclusivity, Gyi? Maybe Chris is going to pull us off the top SEO list now. We may have just screwed ourselves.
No, I think there are arguments both ways, and to me it goes back to.
Did you say there are good people on both sides?
Well, you make this an ethical conundrum, and I think that if you're transparent about it, like I go back to the Scorpion conversation, If Scorpion, who is very transparent about this, says we don't offer exclusivity, we're working. You can go see who we're working with because our logo's at the bottom of all the websites in your local area. We're not trying to hide the ball about anything. And the lawyer makes an informed choice to go in that direction. That's their choice. I don't think there's anything inherently unethical about that. My view is that there's trade-offs. And so, and to me, the only unethical thing would be, someone who thinks they're getting exclusivity and they're not.
I still think if I know what's really working for you, if I know that you're about to open an office in South Poughkeepsie, right? Like it's very hard to not have that information leak over. And in fact, that's what we encourage. We encourage sharing information. We just don't want to share information and data across competitors, period.
Yeah, and again, the other thing that I keep putting myself in the law firm's shoes, and this is obviously longer than a news item, so we'll have to decide what we want to do with it. But I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, I'm getting all my I'm a lawyer. I'm gonna do the thing I tell lawyers not to do all the time, but I'm a law firm owner or a CMO, and I go and I search for queries to see how my firm ranks. I'm spot checking rankings.
Oh yeah, well good. We're gonna talk about competitive analysis soon. Go ahead.
Yeah, we'll do that next. And so I see that I'm in the number 3 spot in the local pack. I'm the number 4 spot traditional organic, and my ads are showing up at the bottom of the page. And then I look at the other firms that are showing up in the local pack and organic and the top paid search result and LSAs, and I see that they're all working with my agency too. I would be like, I don't get it. How is it that this isn't not good for me?
No, you know exactly how it is. I'll just pay them N+1. That's the problem. That is the problem in a nutshell. Pay them N+1 and threaten to leave if they don't fix it. Okay, I dragged Gyi into a micro segment on exclusivity that was not meant to be an ambush. When we come back, we're going to talk about competitive research, one of those marketing activities that most of you don't really think about.
And also, since we already overdid this, what we were really supposed to say is, what do you think about exclusivity? Go leave a comment. Drop a comment on YouTube. We'll post this obviously on the places. We'll make a post on LinkedIn about it. But I'm super curious because as it seems to be the marketplace position, I ran a poll on LinkedIn about this a couple of years ago, and a lot of lawyers didn't care. Do you care, Lungear Legal Marketing crowd? Hey, YouTubers, do you think exclusivity is dumb? Like and subscribe on YouTube. Let's keep this conversation going. Leave a comment. And here's another episode that you might like. How to rank and expand your law firm using local Falcon.
One of the things that I believe is frequently overlooked in the marketing world is competitive research. That's kind of one of the standard things that you learn at good old MBA school. Knowing what's going on with your competitors. And so we actually, I take the competitive side very, very seriously. It is in most cases, a zero-sum game. Your win is their loss, etc. Which is why we think exclusivity is important at the risk of.
I was going to say, who has the best competitive research? Your agency who's working with your competitor.
Wow, that is really good competitive research. That's not on our list. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 7 or 8 bullets on competitive research. We did not add using your agency to know what your competitors are doing because they work with them too. Towards the beginning of last year, and this came out of our annual planning, which is everyone should be doing their annual planning right now. If you haven't done annual planning for 2026, it is December. By the time you're listening to this, it might be too late. Time to panic and get some annual planning. But when Mockingbird did our annual planning, one of the things I wanted to bring to our clients was competitive research. And so we spent the better half of the first 6 months of this year looking at tools, etc. We signed up with a company called MediaRadar. And what we wanted to do was to bring to our clients' understanding who was spending money in their market on offline as well as online. And really, really excited to deliver this. So we took our top 50 clients, put them in MediaRadar. They had 2 products that we were working with. One was their social media product, and the other was their kind of offline product called Media 360. I think it's called MediaRadar 360. The data that we got back, Gyi, was so bad, we decided that we couldn't put it in front of our clients.
So
It was
MediaRadar
off.
will not be sponsoring Lunch Hour Legal Marketing, it sounds like.
MediaRadar will not be sponsoring Lunch Hour Legal Marketing. I mean, we could go and
Why
see.
was it bad? Why was it bad?
Well, so
what was it, first of all? Tell us what you were researching.
So we were trying to see what people were spending offline, right? Radio ads.
Okay, so yeah, people. So this is important because one of the things you might do in competitive research is try to understand where your competitors are spending money. And one of the places that they might be spending money is offline media like radio, billboards, and TV.
And it's also going to be a good alert that someone, when that changes, that someone is moving into the market or someone is leaving a market, for example. I wanted Mockingbird to be the ones to be like, hey, by the way, Top Dog just opened up in Phoenix and here's their spend last month. And that's what I was really, really looking for.
And which is super important because also that might impact the performance of your media buying when a massive competitor comes into play.
It does, right? Like it's a zero-sum game. So we really have to think.
Well, even
about
if it's
this.
not, an asterisk here, and I'm not going to fight you on the zero-sum part, but for sure, it is going to impact performance it could drive up cost per clicks.
Yep.
It could it could change the efficiency of your media mix. And so even if you're like, I'm not buying into this zero-sum game thing, I think anybody is very hard-pressed to say that it doesn't impact your media at all when a competitor enters or exits a market. Or even just adjust budget, right? It might not even be like an enter the market. It might be like someone shifting big dollars from offline to digital or vice versa, or all those different combinations. So I think I'm with you on extremely important research to understand.
Yep. And so we're looking at offline, we're looking at online. And the way it was wrong in most cases was they couldn't even find a record for
scarcity issue.
Yeah. So, and we're going to get into the data scarcity. And I think this is the problem that MediaRadar ran into. We're going to get into the data scarcity problem. So in many cases, it couldn't find anything when we knew that they had been spending because we were running our largest advertiser, for example, they showed up as zero, right? They had nothing for offline. Of those 50 clients, we were only able to match 15 of the 50 that actually had data in there, where it was what we call the possible match. And then of those 15 that was a possible match, there was one that was within like a credible accuracy of the actual spend amount. So they were so it wasn't there. And if it was there, it was off. 14 out of 15 were so far off that we really couldn't put in front of the client. On their social media product, they didn't match anything. It was 0 for 50. I got to thinking like, okay, well, this is unfortunate. But the reality is that it is, I think, a data scarcity problem. They had numbers and data for some of the larger players, right? Some of the big players. John Morgan was in there. Top Dog, I believe, was in there. So some of the really big nationwide big spenders. Now, I don't know if their data was accurate there, but the problem that you get to in using third-party tools. So the end result is not just that MediaRadar was a waste of my time, but that when you're dealing with third-party tools to try and evaluate the spend habits of the legal industry, in most cases, in the vast majority of cases, the data is so small that extrapolating to a level of accuracy is really difficult, if not impossible. And that was kind of my net conclusion on this. That trying to use a lot of these tools, it's just misleading. It's so off. It's not worth it.
I'm going to add a second issue that I think is really important.
Go.
Whether you're using a research company or a tool or whatever, is to understand the research methodology. Because some of it, it's like you alluded to at least that you had an example of somebody who had a significant media buy that wasn't showing up at all. That doesn't sound like a scarcity issue to me. That sounds like a methodology problem.
Interesting.
I would expect your small spenders, they're not going to show up. There's no data on that. But if you got a big spender, or to your point, you got two of the largest spenders in the country and those numbers are off, that to me speaks to methodology.
I think those tools, those kind of big tools, may be valuable if you're a IKEA or Nike or something like that. But a little bit more difficult to actually work. Whether it's a methodology problem, data scarcity, but in legal, most of us are dealing with small numbers. And we kept asking them about, well, how do you know what a spend is on Facebook, right? Unless you've got the Facebook data. Like, it's really hard to try and look at, even if you're using a browser plugin, the methodology is to try and sample data and then extrapolate. When you're dealing with really, really small numbers or really defined targets, it's really, really difficult to try and get any level of accuracy.
Yeah, the tools themselves are problematic, but the thing that I want to distinguish as well is that a tool that is either using a browser plugin or scraping or whatever it's doing, like, to me, that goes to the limitations, understand the limitations of the tools and the methodology, but there's all sorts of competitive research that you can do that has nothing to do with, because I'll use your Facebook example. So you might not be able to get spend numbers.
Right.
But, the Facebook ads library, you can definitely look at creative comparisons and see what messaging is and what video they're using and what position statements. And so to me, like, that's one of the big ones that I want to know is, if you're say you're a family law firm, and you're publishing pricing, and you go and look, and competitors are, I'm just using this as an example. This is not a recommendation, everybody. This is not advice. This is just a hypothetical example. But you're just outmatched on price, and you can see that those ads are running in your local community. Well, don't be shocked if you're advertising, $100,000 divorce, and your competitors advertising $1,000 divorce. Media dollars spent in that competitive environment are going to be really challenged, especially if you're not positioning it in a way that builds in the value of why it's worth spending $100,000 versus $1,000, if that makes sense.
So you went to pricing on this, but you skipped past the positioning and branding part of this, right?
Pricing could be part of your positioning, but yeah,
sure,
you can go ahead, broaden it out. Yep.
My question is, great to be able to see from a positioning, branding, messaging, which we talk about ad nauseum here. Where else what other tools do you like to use on pure competitive research to try and get a feel for that? Like, those Facebook ads, think about serving those Facebook ads up to your designer when you're working on your own creative, right? Super, super valuable. Where else do you look?
Well, you've got all of the the same third-party tools you're talking about that do the scraping, right? So things that scrape search results to look at Google ads, a lot of the rank tracking tools. I think and again, to one of the things that is part of the competitive analysis stuff is like the rank tracking. We'll get to that as a separate thing, but what it does do is that if you're scraping search results, you are seeing the ad copy and the title tags and meta descriptions of competitors, and a lot of their positioning is baked into that. And so you can see, who's, showing what verdict numbers people are showing, or the other big one and this is in the context of a local versus an out-of-state player, but another example that you might see is like, okay, this competitor who doesn't have an office here is advertising that we're the biggest law firm in the country. If you have positioning that's like leaning in on like we're a big firm in the local community, size might not be your best positioning statement when you're trying to outspend somebody who's got a national brand presence.
I like that example. Let me ask you a question on this. There's some people who would say, like, just run your own race. Do you, babe, right? And don't worry what anyone else is doing.
Well, as a Stoic, I would say, yes, worrying does you no good. So don't worry. But I'm very much in the camp of you should be, especially when you talk about annual planning.
Yeah.
You should be setting growth objectives on your own firm data and your own benchmarks. But it is, in my opinion, if the run your own race message means ignore your competition, you are naive, flat out. Like you are going to stumble into issues that you could have avoided if you had done even like the most basic competitive research.
Well, let me flip side that. So the other danger, the other extreme danger is you watch what everyone else is doing and then you just try and copy that.
Well, right? That's not, but I think that is what the run your own race is typically used to
validate,
combat. But but I think I don't think if you're using competitive research just to copy, like you kind of missed the point. And we've already given like several examples, I think, of why competitive research is valuable. But certainly don't presume that you can just go out, copy your competitors' ads, and step 3, profit.
Step 3, profit. We should find that clip.
Competitive research, copy, profit.
Profit. All right. What are some of the other tools that you like? I know you love crapping on domain rank.
You tell people. I'm not even going to talk about it. You tell people what that is. I don't even give it the light of day.
You won't even say it.
I don't even give it any oxygen at all.
So domain rank is a third party key here. Assessment on a scale of 1 to 100 of how much authority your website has. It is an attempt to quantify what Google has built from a link profile for your site. Gyi, why will you not talk about why this is so bad?
No, this is a metric that is totally used wrong. And this is where you get these spam emails. They're like, buy PR and DR 87 links. And, some of our rivals will be like, look at this DR 87 link that I got. And everyone's like clapping and jumping upside down. Jumping and down. Jumping up and down.
Up and down. Up and down.
And upside down.
And upside down if you're
and it is largely, in my view, not a great indicator of anything, except that the marketing people have created a thing to try to directionally give their clients look what we did, pat us on the back. Before we get back into our conversation about competitive research, we wanted to say thank you to Brian J. O'Connor, who left a comment on Apple Podcasts that reads, a must listen for any lawyer serious about growing their firm. As a personal injury lawyer in New York, Lunch Hour Legal Marketing has become part of my weekly routine. The combination of Conrad's authentic, brutally honest perspective and Gyi's polished, lawyer-centric insights makes this podcast a can't-miss experience. Every episode strikes the perfect balance between real-world marketing strategy and the kind of candid truth you rarely hear in this industry. Whether they're breaking down SEO myths, debating client experience, or calling out bad marketing practices, they always deliver value. If you're a lawyer who wants to grow your firm the right way with integrity, data, and creativity, this is the podcast to listen to. Brian O'Connor, thank you so much. Brian will remind everybody, is a personal injury lawyer in New York. So folks, if you're in that market and want to get to meet Brian or looking for referrals in that market, talk to Brian. Thank you. And for everybody else who has been listening to Lunch Hour Legal Marketing and has never left a review, who's been sitting there and lurking, can you help us get to 100 reviews? We're at 54 currently. We have the stats. We know you're there. Unless someone's got a bot that's just downloading episodes and skewing our numbers. Feel free to leave a comment on YouTube or Spotify if you're not onto the Apple Podcast thing. And of course, you can reach out on LinkedIn. I don't think you can review us on LinkedIn. I guess you could review Conrad and Gyi, but you can't review Lunch Hour Legal Marketing. Anyway, we do really appreciate it. It helps get the word out. And so if you take the time to do that, we would be very, very grateful. And we'll give you a shout on the podcast.
I like being authentic and polished. I think that would, if we had to do one adjective for each of us, I think that would be, I can live with that.
Brutally honest. Honest. Don't miss the brutal part. All right. So back to this idea of competitive research. And we were talking about domain
Gyi's
authority.
Favorite topic.
You asked me a question.
I want to ask you a question. You are trying to assess whether a law firm could be doing well or better from an SEO perspective. One of the keys is their overall site authority, right? You don't look at this.
No, I don't even look at it.
What do you look at to evaluate, to answer that question? Should this law firm be investing in SEO, investing hard in SEO? Are they missing the boat? Should they never do it because they'll never catch up? How do you make that assessment?
Okay, great question. So when I'm trying to start talking about marketing at a firm in general, I'm trying to look for benchmarks and I'm trying to look for the where are we trying to go. So how much, quote unquote, growth do we want to have over what time period? Where are we actually currently getting clients? And this is the key part, because this is going to answer your question more directly. What's the gap between where we are today and where we think we need to go to close the gap in the context of the competitive landscape? And so let me dive in. Yeah.
This is great.
So let's go into SEO specific. I don't have a website. Law firm doesn't have a website. And I am in one of the more competitive markets in the country. And I'm in one of the more competitive practice areas, being car accidents, personal injury, motor vehicle accidents. And you're asking me, and you're like, I've got a 12-month growth plan that includes X, Y, and Z related to cases and at a cost per case. I am going to say SEO, except for some, plant the seeds, start planting seeds, but you have a huge gap. You have a huge gap to close. And personally, and I would love to hear, I'm sure some people will fight with me about this.
Oh,
I think
I got one for you earlier. She featured earlier on this podcast.
I think you are going to be hard pressed to hit what the economics that most firms would need for a target cost per case in local SEO and bottom of the funnel non-brand high volume cases and traffic and rankings and all that stuff, because the gap is so big. Now, so you'd say to me, well, so what does that mean? I'd say, should I not invest in SEO? And I'd be like, it should be part of your plan. It's probably going to be things like, let's improve. Like we can probably change your homepage title from home to optimize for queries that are actually relevant in your practice area. I think let's get your GBP, your Google Business Profile, set up, but you've got no reviews, so good luck. Because even if we got you to rank, you're not going to get any calls. And so anyway, so what percentage of my marketing plan and budget is that? It's much lower, but I also don't think you should ignore it. But you got a big gap.
How do you identify that?
Sorry, I didn't get there. Yeah, so I didn't get to
the key piece. That's what I'm trying to get
right.
to.
Right. So I'm looking at the competitive landscape. I'm like, all right, so who is in the local pack today for these target queries? So I might look at a local Falcon report or a Places Scout report. Our good friend SEMRush that just got bossed by Adobe. Ahrefs. We have a lot of tools. Moz, we use a lot of different tools. Moz is stat tool for rank tracking. And so you see who the firms are that are for local SEO, the local pack. And then I will pull things like, I want to know their review counts. I want to know, and this is the one metric that you might argue is like, well, there's domain authority in there, but I'm going to tell you why it's not right. I'll look for root linking domains. And what that means is, how many different websites are linking to the firms that are showing up in both the local pack and the traditional organic results for the target queries? Now, in most competitive landscapes, that number is in the thousands. It's certainly in the hundreds. And again, if you have no website, if you're trying to do apples to apples, which is not, because we all know that the links and the domains are not all equally created, that's going to directionally give me a sense of the gap that I've got to close. And I will go look at competitive backlink reports to say, hey, where are these competitors getting backlinks from? But to the point that we made earlier, I'm not just trying to copy backlink profiles. Like a lot of the times, what do you see? You see the directories. And you're like, okay, well, I'm going to prioritize directories for the from the sites that the competitors are ranking are showing up. I'm going to prioritize some of the local link building activities that I see, because you might be able to pick up like local sponsorships and local organizations that some of the competitors are using. But that's going to give me a sense of the gap that I need to close from just on links and reviews. I'm going to do, you talked about this a lot. I'm going to look at total index pages. I'm going to run a competitive crawl with Screaming Frog to see how many pages actually exist that are crawlable. Stuff like that. But those are the big things. I'm going to look at the competitive gap on technical. I'm going to look at the competitive gap on content, and I'm going to look at the competitive gap on links and the competitive gap on reviews.
You mentioned local quite a few times, right? And I think for me, there's really good tools for local. I think competitive research for local is a lot easier than competitive research for organic.
Well, you say that, and I would want to agree with you, but
Okay.
you throw AI into this mix. And the most recent iterations of local packs they're generative. Historically, we would do what I just said and what you're alluding to, which is you just say like, okay, you go to use local Falcon, it pulls, it goes and pings the Google Maps API and shows you who's showing up in those local packs. And I don't know that we're going to be able to continue to rely on that moving into 26 and beyond. I mean, we do it as well.
Okay.
But I don't know if it's any easier anymore.
I want to come back to local because I think that's, and we should talk about local Falcon and some of the data in there for local.
One more, I got to put one more asterisk in.
Go.
Personalization. Personalization.
Okay. So this is one of and AI and personalization. So this has been we've kind of made fun of people for this, but a lot of this stuff and especially AI, I think we've covered this many times on the pod. Highly personalized. We used to make fun of people doing local results and be like, oh, we rank number 1 now. Well, it's because you're sitting in your office.
Right.
So
I got one more for you.
Oh, he can't stop. Gyi, see,
two more. I got two more.
Two more.
Two more.
Adam, get this man under control.
The other problem, not just personalization, but Flux. You know, there is so much variability. We've talked about that before. And so what do we mean by that? It's every time that there's a query or a prompt, it's different. And so this is why these rank trackers, and so again, so from a competitive intelligence standpoint, because that's what we're supposed to be talking about.
Yeah.
I think there's some directional value. I think you can get some basics around like share of voice and stuff like that. And then the other thing to throw in, a lot of these tools, this goes back to the understanding how the tools work and methodology and the limitations. If the tool is using URLs, like Google doesn't even show a URL for local results on mobile, and so you're like missing a bunch of data that the tool can't even track properly. Now they don't all do that, and there's some people who argue like, oh no, this tool uses the business name and blah blah blah. It's not. There's a lot of issues that go into the reliability of any of this kind of data. But again, we still do it. I think directionally it's helpful. And of course, if your competitor is working with the same agencies, you can just ask them. Just tell me how they're doing.
No, the answer to that question is pay me more than agency Smith and then law firm Smith and Jones, and I will get you ranked.
And you don't need the tools at all. You don't need the tools at all.
You have the tool. You are the tool in that case.
You are the tool.
Wow. Sorry.
Anyways, there's a lot. So I don't know that it's sorry. I was just reacting to it's easier. You're going to take us somewhere else though. So
no, I here's the thing on SEO. Like I want to know actually on marketing. I want to know where is your dollar best spent, right? And like, should you even be playing in the SEO game? I think that is a very real question. We talked about it earlier. Maria Monroy disagreed with me. She believes that she can rank anyone, anywhere through SEO, and that you can always start with SEO. We had that conversation. I disagree with that. I think there are definitely many times, where you should choose to put your SEO dollars elsewhere because you're never going to win. And very bluntly, Gyi, we do look at if I'm looking at a market and I'm looking at domain rank as flawed as it may be, and I have 12 competitors who are in the 30 to 60 range, and I'm at a 7. As flawed as it may be, that's an indicator to me that these 12 other firms have been working at this for a long time, and that that should not be the first place where I spend my marketing dollars, right? So like I know you hate it, but directionally, from a competitive like stacking you up against whether like you could have you have 1,000 pages and you have a 7 DR and you're doing personal injury in Manhattan, like fuck it, you're never gonna play in the game. It would take so much money to play in the game that money should be spent somewhere else.
Have you ever seen examples where a firm is in the local pack and is standing out as it has very low domain authority compared to some of the other firms in the local pack?
And this is why I really try and disambiguate organic versus local. I agree on local pack because and the reason for this, it's very search theory centric. The reason that Gyi makes his comment, and he's right, is that the best links that you can get, the best citations that you can get for a local business are local, and the localness of links is not picked up in nationwide DR studies. It's just not. It's not a thing. There's no way to measure that. And so 100% correct on local, but I think this is really important for people. This is why I always talk about like search is not organic and local put together. Those are two different marketing channels with two different tactical sets, two different competitive sets. I think it's important to disambiguate those things. And so like when you're looking at local, review count becomes the easy number to look at, but it also does include how local are the localized links of the competitors. And that's not something that a pretty little tool can do. That's like kind of painful competitive research, right? It's one at a time.
Yep. Another thing that comes up a lot in the competitive research conversation is this, social media research, which might include like followers and blah, blah, and engagement and that kind of stuff. Conrad, tell us what's problematic about that.
Well, you said followers and engage. Oh, I know what. Sorry. I just saw where you were leading me down. Watch, I'm going to answer the question the way I was initially going to answer it because I wasn't being as cynical as my friend Gyi. The follower count's garbage, right? The follower count's complete garbage. And if you want 2,000 followers, send me $50 and I'll make that happen for you tomorrow.
Check your Venmo. I sent it to you.
Check your Venmo. Very easy to fake, very easy to purchase, not a real thing. Gyi, why did I backtrack? I did a 180, put it in reverse, and tried to backtrack on saying that engagement metrics are actually really, really important. What are you specifically talking about, and would you like to name names?
Well, I'm going to say the same. You can just take the little blurb. Maybe I can have Adam edit this, and maybe it'll be funny because he can like do a voiceover. But you can take exactly what you just said and apply it to engagement as well.
And how do people do that?
It's purchase, engagement pods, paid for. Okay. You can pay for likes. You can pay for any. So you can pay for reviews. You can pay for any indicator. This is the whole problem. Like you can pay for any indicator that you can think of that you think's a thing, and it isn't just not a great barometer. Go click into some of your favorite legal influencers' profiles and go look at posts and followers and realize that they got 500 likes or 500 hearts on Instagram from profiles that are in a different language that are on the other side of the globe.
Yes.
And so there's happened to be really interested in local personal injury law firms next to you. Like there's like, they all happen to have an experience with your firm. Like, come on. I think the offline stuff is super interesting and super valuable, especially if you're a upmarket, you're bigger firm that's trying to capture incremental. I don't think people really have a sense of the impact of offline media on online, especially, talking about, we got to give a plug. We got to do a shill for our good friends at Near Media.
Pandering to Near Media.
Yeah. And I just had our most recent month, Q&A with them. Folks, if you're interested in that, you can reach out to Conrad, me, or Near Media. And I just don't think that lawyers really appreciate the impact and the lines blurred between performance, direct response, brand, offline media, and digital, and how these things all work together. And that's a place that I would definitely spend more research time. Now, the good news is offline is pretty easy to research because you can take a weekend and go drive around your local community and look for billboards. It's not going to give you spend numbers, but you can look at, how many billboards can you count? How many radio spots can you count? We do this when we go to conferences. I'll tongue in cheek because I'll watch the local news in the morning, count the spots, see who's advertising, and then not to mention that offline brand support and brand support in general, digital brand support impacts your performance marketing. I mean, we know that people that are doing non-brand search queries are more likely to choose firms that they recognize in the results, regardless of position.
And this is where I go back to MediaRadar. Where are we? I would love a service that did a really good job at this at the small level. I just don't know that it exists.
Yeah, that's why I think you got to be scrappy about this one, especially if you don't have the dollars or the data. I think if you're like, hey, look, I'm going to go hit the expressways on major commuter thoroughfares. And this is not going to work in every market, of course, because some of these markets is like too big of a job. But I think there's definitely some markets where you're like, who the big spenders are on offline. And even though you might not be able to get spend numbers for it, you can quote unquote extrapolate to get a sense of what the competitive environment looks like. And by the way, if you're driving around and there are 0 law firm billboards, like, great, I would prioritize considering offline media. There are 0 radio lawyer buys. That'd be a channel that I might move up the list because that's a huge opportunity. And again, I don't think that. I mean, I think lawyers think radio, TV, billboards are like, this is way outside my budget. Offline media buying is a whole other conversation for another day. But I don't think that lawyers appreciate the impact that it has on, and really all the other channels too.
Yeah. So we should talk about we could do a whole thing on super hyper targeted display advertising or brand advertising, not even just display. So one of the numbers that I really like, and I was really clear to kind of disambiguate SEO and local. I love the local Falcon scans, and the number that they have is called share of local voice, which is solve. That's a number that you can run every month or every quarter. Solve is basically share of local voice. It is the percentage of time in that matrix that you show up in the top 3. Okay. And if you don't show up in the top 3, you're not really showing up. Gyi certainly makes points about like it changes, it's personalized, it's gonna be AI impacted, etc. Fair concern, but as of today, it is a great tool to identify when people are moving into that market and when your market is actually shrinking, right? And so if you run that and you list the top 10 players in that market that show up in Solve and you see changes in that or changes in where you live in that area, that to me is a really, really impactful number. I think the nuance on this is you have to have a clever or careful approach to how wide a radius you're looking at. Right.
I would add,
I
would add 2 more things.
Yeah.
I would be very careful about how you're configuring the tool for like pins, because one thing that Solve will get totally screwed up on is if you do a generic grid and it's over water and randomly someone's like, oh, you're the local leader, but yeah, all of your number 1 rankings are over the lake.
Right. So Gyi,
doesn't matter.
How does one fix that problem?
You have to configure the tool. You have to go in and uncheck the grid points.
That also is very true for those that are like on state lines. If you can't work 3 miles to the west, you should probably stop counting those as a share of local voice.
Another great example.
It's not really share of local voice. Have you seen, this is a question, this is an aside, this is a rabbit, a squirrel, not a rabbit, rabbit, squirrel. We're seeing land masses, lakes, and now what people will call mountains, if they don't live in the mountainous areas, as being kind of an artificial. I've only seen this anecdotally. No one's ever, to my awareness, no one's done a study on this, but almost as an additional barrier to your, okay.
Yeah, you got it. You have so one of the solutions to this is that you can reduce grid size down. So like it gets more impactful the more you're like, yeah, this is a neighborhood that there are no mountains, there are no lakes, like people live here.
Sorry. My question, Gyi, was, have you seen where a natural feature, mountains, and I'm seeing mountains or hills really, and lake and bodies of water be an artificial separator? Like you'll be doing really well up into the lake, and then you cross the lake and you don't exist.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. We're seeing that a lot, and I've never seen a report on that.
Yeah, just go. You can run I'll tell you right now, go run a local grid over any of the Great Lakes, and you'll see all sorts of weirdness as you get into the lake. Yeah. And again, my thing is like that data is trash for you because nobody is searching. In the lake.
It's on the other side of the lake.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'm not,
same thing again.
I'm not. Yeah,
it's going to
articulating my point well.
I see. You're saying that that natural boundary.
I'm saying the geographic feature actually has an impact on the ranking.
I would be curious if that's because of the geographic feature or is because of something else that's going on from because remember, the other thing that's impacting all this stuff is user engagement, right? So,
okay. Yep. Right.
Anyway,
so this could be it could be an outcome of the user engagement. No one on the east side of the lake ever clicks on something on the west side of the lake, and therefore the east side of the lake is doing better.
Exactly. The other one that, but the point is that you really want to configure your grid to where your target audience is. If you don't do that, all of these metrics are going to be totally messed
hold
up.
on. I'm not sure I agree with that. So I mean, it's all built around the whole point of that is to be like, oh, your office is in a place where no one wants to hire you, right? If your target audience is 15 miles away.
Yeah.
Local search is not a game for you to play unless you live in
Alaska
or Nebraska.
Come on. But I would be like, that might be a place, centipede strategy. Like I might go look at that grid because that's where my clients are.
Got it.
And I don't have an office there, so I'm going to open up a new office with Conrad centipede strategy.
Okay.
Anyway, the point is like, why are you tracking rankings? Period. No, just kidding. Why? For a competitive intelligence standpoint, if you want to be looking at how you stack up versus competitors in places that you're trying to attract clients. Otherwise, none of this makes any sense.
That's right.
What else?
All right.
What other competitive? We're kind of running out of time here.
We're running out of time. I'm going to ask you one last question because I don't like the answers to this. Okay. Do you like any tools for competitive snooping on pay-per-click budgets or LSA budgets?
No.
Okay.
The leaders here, and we already hit this. I'm trying to remember who the big one was that we used to use, and we had the same problems. It's just not. You have to think about it. I mean, for listeners, think about how these ad auctions work on Google and how often you have to scrape the results to understand who's buying. And then you layer in things like quality score, and like we're not all paying the same price for clicks, and so all of the modeling off of how much a click costs, that's going to be an indicator of how much they're spending based on how much their ads are running. They're really, really not very good. The only way the best thing to do is go buy media, go put your ads up, and then use the platform data to directionally see how you compare.
That's what I was driving to. The third-party tools to try and evaluate this with the small numbers that you're dealing with in legal. Super, super problematic. It's to the extent that it's useless.
Small numbers and variability on cost per clicks. And again, we can extrapolate this and say the same thing. This is why these AI rank trackers are so problematic, because the flux is so high, the variability is so high. People will say, no, you can directionally do it. But again, it's like you don't even have right now with the AI stuff, you don't even have validation that people are even using the technology that way. So, and then people will say, oh, well, I'm future-proofing because everybody's going to switch to ChatGPT. And I'm like, okay, maybe someday that's true. And, again, back to where, our research today, like you're going to go, what percentage of your media budget is going to be, or your marketing budget is going to be devoted to something that is extremely speculative, that you have zero, there's no analytics, there's no search console, there's no reporting. The best you're going to get is self-reported qualitative attribution. Like I use ChatGPT to find you. And then, hey, what prompt did you use for that? Right? I mean, come on.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us. According to Riverside and Allie and Adam, who are both bored to tears, we have, for the first time ever, this is a record. You're a part of a record. We have been recording for more than an hour on a pod that we weren't quite sure we had enough content for. I do not envy Allie and Adam's job of turning this into a succinct, interesting, single episode, but that's what you got. So, from Lunch Hour Legal Marketing, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Money makes a it makes a world go round. Money makes a world go round. Yeah, money make a world go round. Yeah, money make a world go round.